everyone, and welcome to our first episode of M&A Empow'Her'ment. I'm Kelsey Thomas. I'll be your host for this series, and really looking forward to this journey. So, as I mentioned, I'm Kelsey. I am a senior manager in the transaction advisory practice here at Withum. With me today is Steve Brady. He is the managing partner of our group. I'll let him give an intro here shortly. Just a little background about myself. I've been in public accounting for about 15 years. I started with a national firm and came back to my roots in Western New York, where I grew up. Worked for a smaller, more regional firm, and then transitioned to Withum in 2021. I've been working on transactions for probably the better part of 8 or 9 years now, and that's really, been my passion in terms of the accounting world. So really excited to kind of bring together my work passion as well as my passion for empowerment of women, which we'll get into the mission and the ideas behind the podcast shortly. But I want to turn it over to Steve to introduce himself and our transaction advisory practice.
Thanks, Kelsey, and thanks so much for having me as the guest on this launch of the series. Super excited about what you're going to cover and hearing the insights from your guests over time. As you said, Steve Brady, partner with Withum, market leader of our transaction advisory practice. I've been doing transaction advisory work for over 20 years, half with a global firm and half in middle market firms, and super excited over the last 3.5 years to lead and build Withum's practice with our awesome team, and over that course of time bringing in great people such as Kelsey, which we'll explore a little bit more in this episode. But our transaction practice, full scope throughout the M&A life cycle, and from a financial team to tax team, operations, and other aspects of the M&A life cycle. It's a very comprehensive practice.
Perfect. All right. Well, getting into the purpose of the video series. So what my mission is to amplify the voices, the experiences, the achievements of women in the world of M&A. So through insightful conversations, personal experiences, and expert insights, my goal is to inspire, empower, and provide a platform for women to share their journeys, strategies, struggles, and lessons learned while navigating the intricate and dynamic world of M&A. So kind of just covering a few different things. The video series will be broken down into several mini-series so that we can cover current and relevant topics in the M&A world. So the first mini-series that you can expect is where I'll provide my viewers with insight into the deal process. So each episode will highlight a member of your deal team, their role in the process, their expertise, real-world examples, and discussion of challenges faced during their roles. Additionally, any advice to other women who may be interested in pursuing this field. So we'll try to have at least monthly episodes as we go through this, and by highlighting the contributions of women in these roles, I strive to break down barriers, challenge stereotypes, and drive positive change for future generations of women in M&A. So that gives you a little bit of insight into what to expect. Future mini-series, we'll again be covering relevant topics into the world of M&A and possibly even based on suggestions from you all, our viewers. So next, I think what I'd like to cover is, I want to give you a few stats on women in M&A. Women in the business world, not just M&A, has definitely been a hot topic. Having diversity in the workplace and just in general with different thought perspectives is something that I think is valuable, not just from a gender perspective, but diversity in general. So a couple of statistics that I'd like to kind of have our viewers think about is women hold 23% of all investing roles at private equity firms in the Americas, but account for only 13% at the managing director level. And this is according to research published in 2022 by global consultant McKinsey & Company. Let's see. Another interesting one is research from Deloitte in 2019 found that at the current rate of change, financial services firms might not achieve gender equality in leadership positions until 2085. So those are just a couple. I mean, there's a lot of other statistics out there. I think the last one really kind of struck me. 2085 feels like a long time. I don't think either Steve or I will be in practice at that point. But it's just, I guess it's interesting to me, especially with our firm, Steve. I feel like there is a lot of focus on, both diversity and inclusion based on race and gender equality. So the idea of it being 2085, and again, that's just an overall statistic, feels very, very daunting and concerning. So I think that one thing, it will be firm specific, and to me, it feels like with the goals of our our managing group and our partners and our shareholders, that hopefully this is something that can be achieved sooner than what a daunting statistic like that might provide. So I guess I'm curious to kind of see your thoughts and reactions to a couple of those statistics. And just to our audience, I didn't give Steve those statistics before we started, so this is a real reaction here.
Yeah, you certainly shocked me with the 2085, and certainly I have confidence and hope that that won't be the reality. I think it's been fantastic to see the evolution over the long period of time I've been in the M&A world, not just 20 years in transaction advisory, but many years before that as a CFO and in the audit side of the world, and have seen the progress. And I think that's, again, really what my perspective to focus on. I mean, as we sit here in 2024, the world looks a lot different than it did 5 years ago, 10 years ago. And I'm not going to do the regression on that. But again, my hope and certainly confidence we'll be well ahead of that date, that study. Not to poke it, I'm sure there's some very good math in there that they came up with that conclusion. To your point, Kelsey, I think more importantly than focusing on the date and the when and the numbers, we've seen the progression through all sides of the M&A ecosystem of women in private equity firms and investment banks and transaction advisory. Again, seeing it become, the contributions that have been made over time. We may touch on a few of them, more of those as we go through this discussion. But I think the perspective is, we certainly, based on those studies, have some work to do. But I think what you alluded to in your comments, it's hopefully through leadership of both men and women in driving our professions forward that we really make a change sooner rather than later.
Absolutely. And that's kind of a good segue into, there for sure are, highlighting, recognition of women in M&A and other achievements that are out there. So, this is definitely, the ball is for sure rolling on this. Some examples that I've seen, I have an acquaintance through Nixon Peabody who is leading a women in deal making initiative, and that happens throughout the Northeast. Great initiative there. I know that a lot of the big four have women focused M&A groups. The Association for Corporate Growth, which we do a lot of work through, they have a specific women's network, and a lot of the events that we've been to will have specific panels focused on women's success and some of the work that they've done throughout the M&A world. There's also various highlighting awards for influential women in mid-market M&A, which I know our colleague Caroline was honored to receive. I believe that was last year or the year before.
Right.
Another interesting kind of this was out in the news, I think in 2021, Blackstone's investment in Spanx, that was led by an all-female deal team that was highlighted and put out there in the news as another women's success. So, I do think things are happening. There's awareness being brought to the topic. Like I mentioned, not just M&A, but in the business world in general, kind of bringing it back to how we started is, that's kind of my hope, is that, by this video series and by others like it, whether it be podcasts, other social media formats, or just outreach in general, that, this can be our as in Withum and my, contribution, to be able to make, a little bit of headway in this, to hopefully lessen the time frame of those statistics we just talked about. So, we talked a little bit about the Withum initiative and how, we feel that our leadership is, very, very aware of these types of statistics, and, the importance of women, in our accounting firm and in the profession in general. Is there anything else, from our specific M&A practice that you see, going forward, Steve, or, other just kind of thoughts about the role of women in our specific practice? I think we do have a great spread of men and women. I feel that, there's never any, preferential treatment based on what, whatever the roles may be. So, I think that we as a group are doing, great in comparison to, maybe some of the other groups that are out there. So just wanted to kind of get your perspective on that as well.
I think it's a couple things. I mean, one, I'll go back to, I think, comment I made a little bit ago on just purposeful leadership. I mean, when we roughly 4 years ago, started planning and launching what is now the transaction advisory practice that we have today, this was clearly one of our goals. I mean, it's written in the kind of the foundational goals of this practice, and super proud of the contributions that the women, and certainly the men also, but the women have made, that we've brought on, such as yourself and others. But you look at the practice, I mean, to your point, we're the most senior people in this practice, we're roughly 50% women. And we've done it through finding the best talent. And that, I think, is one of the important things, I was reflecting on when you were talking about the organizations we're involved in one of the events that I was at in New York a year or so ago, which was a most influential women's event. And because we were a sponsor, I was there with 85 women who deserved to be in there because of their accomplishments. And, it's just super impressive. And I think the real point there, it also having role models. I mean, we have founders of private equity firms, numerous examples, not just senior MDs in private equity firms, but women starting firms, and some clients, and certainly some others we know in the workplace marketplace, and that's super exciting. And again, I think getting back to our practice, other than purposely finding the talent and having your eyes open to that, I think it's kind of, to me, it's a simple thing, and the more people, again, men and women, think this way, our practice should mirror the world, so to speak, and that's not just men and women. There's other dynamics to that, but the United States has evolved in terms of the financial services industry and becoming more diverse, and we need to consciously think that who's the next talented person we can add to our team that helps us mirror that image.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I think that's perfectly said. So that's really all I wanted to cover today. I think some of the key takeaways are, progress has been made with women in M&A, but there's still a lot of room for improvement. We wanted to give you a little bit of background on ourselves, as well as the transaction advisory practice here at Withum, just so that you could kind of see, how we fit into this world of M&A. And I really hope that you'll continue to tune in to these episodes. We're very, very excited, especially for this first mini series, where we can introduce you to some of these, exceptional women in M&A, and you'll get to hear them talk firsthand about, their experiences and some of the challenges that they've faced, as I mentioned earlier. So looking forward to sharing this journey with you, and, would love to have you connect with me on LinkedIn and reach out, with feedback on the show, any additional topics that you'd like to see us cover in the future. And Steve, thank you so much for joining me on this, the first episode, the launch episode here. It's so exciting. And I would be remiss, especially given the time of year here in Western New York, if I didn't end this with Go Bills.
Somehow I knew that was coming, and thanks for having me be a part of this launch, Kelsey. And again, excited to see how this is going to evolve, and for our audience, a nice, really nice series we're putting on here, and Kelsey's initiative in doing that is super exciting, and goes along with the Capital Table, our podcast series, and just really excited to bring more information to the M&A ecosystem on what's going on.
Perfect. Thanks. All right, everyone. Thanks again for tuning in, and we look forward to having you join us on the next one.